Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm counting down my top 10 favorite children's books. And these are books I loved reading when I was a kid. I'm talking preschool age, 5 and under. And these are honestly some of my favorite early childhood memories, just reading these books over and over again with either my mom or my dad. It was just this sanctuary, just being with my dad or with my mom and reading these books as a kid to the point where I had them memorized and I loved them so much. And reading is an important part of childhood. It helps shape imagination. It helps kids to learn, helps get you ready for kindergarten. And so these are just very cherished memories for me. And so I'm happy to reminisce and share my favorites. So here we go. Number 10, Put Me in a Zoo, written and illustrated by Robert Lopshire, and it was published back in 1960. And this book is about this spotted leopard who wants to live in the zoo. And I loved this book because it was just so colorful and fun. The leopard, he does all these tricks with his spots. He's got these red, orange, green, and purple spots. And he would do tricks. He'd throw them in the sky. He'd make them small, make them really big. He'd juggle with them. And then at the end, the kids, they decide he shouldn't be in the zoo. He should be in the circus. So he could show off all his tricks and his unique qualities. And it was just a really cute book. Number 9, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, written by Bill Martin Jr. and John Archambault, illustrated by Lois L. Hart, and it was published back in 1989. And this is a fun book because it teaches kids the alphabet. You have each letter of the alphabet climbing up the coconut tree one by one in alphabetical order, and then they come crashing down, they get injured. And it's cute because it's the lowercase letters, and then their parents are their respective capital letters. Just really cute. Teaching you the alphabet. And then at the end, there's that moment where the A comes back to climb up the tree. The mischievous little A, and I liked that because, hey, my name starts with the letter A. First letter of the alphabet. Really adorable. Number 8, Green Eggs and Ham, written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, published in 1960. Dr. Seuss is honestly one of the biggest names in children's books. And some fun facts about Dr. Seuss is, first of all, his real name is Theodore Seuss Geisel, but the pseudonym Seuss, first off, he had intended it for it to be pronounced Soyce, rhyming with voice, but then he switched it to Seuss because, to quote him, he had said, "It evoked a figure advantageous for an author of children's books to be associated with, Mother Goose." And then he added the doctor because his father had always wanted him to practice medicine. Just some fun facts there. But Dr. Seuss, known for the rhyming, known for his whimsical worlds, unique characters. And of course in this book you've got Sam I Am, and the other character doesn't have a name, but Sam I Am wants to convince this guy to try green eggs and ham. And a really cool fact about this book is that it consists of only 50 words, and the reason for that is because Dr. Seuss had a bet with his publisher that he couldn't make a children's book with only 50 words, but he did, and this one's a classic. You've got the rhyming in there, you've got that stubborn character who doesn't want to try the eggs, and then finally he tries the green eggs and ham, and of course he loves them. And I've actually got a list here of the 50 words used in the book. I'll go ahead and rattle them off. Here we go, in alphabetical order. The 50 words in Green Eggs and Ham are A, am, and, anywhere, are, be, boat, box, car, could, dark, do, eat, eggs, fox, goat, good, green, ham, here, house, I, if, in, let, like, may, me, mouse, not, on, or, rain, Sam, say, see, so, thank, that, the, them, there, they, train, tree, try, will, with, would, you. There you go. Put all those words together, repeat them a couple times. You've got Green Eggs and Ham. Also, with this book, I do remember as a kid, I loved the animated version of it. If you recall that, I had a VHS tape specifically, and this was one of the stories. Then there was also, oh boy, what were they called? The Sneetches? Those characters, those yellow bird type characters, and some of them had stars, and then the other ones didn't, and then they went back and forth wanting to be superior if they had stars or they didn't have stars. And then they decided we're all the same. It doesn't matter whether you have a star or not on your belly. And then the other one in that was, oh goodness, let me think. I'm thinking off the top. I'm really just thinking. The Yaks? Oh man, this is driving me crazy now. Well, it was those two characters who one was walking north, the other one walking south, and then they collide, and then they were too stubborn to move the other direction, so they just stood there for the rest of their lives. Not the Yaks. The Zacks. Okay, I was one letter off. The Zacks, those two characters. So yeah, that was really cute. Green Eggs and Ham. It had also a little song in it in the animated version. Then the message being, you don't know if you like something until you try it. So a nice positive message for kids. Continuing on, number 7, Rainbow Fish, written and illustrated by Marcus Pfister. And he's actually from Switzerland. This book was originally published in German back in 1992. And I have to say, I actually completely forgot the plot of this book. For some reason, I had misremembered it, thinking it was more of an ugly duckling type story in which the rainbow fish was made fun of for having shiny scales. But actually, it's more of a story about vanity. The rainbow fish feeling he's superior to everyone because he's so beautiful. But then he becomes lonely because no one wants to hang out with him because he's so full of himself. And then he realizes that he talks to this wise octopus who tells him that he should share his beautiful shiny scales with everyone. And he does, and he keeps one for himself. So everyone has a shiny scale so they could feel beautiful. And then he's happy. And he has all these friends now. And it's just so pretty, the book. I just remember those shiny scales. Just staring at it and reading it. And actually this book too, I do recall an animated special for it. I definitely watched that as a kid as well. Continuing on, number 6, The Giving Tree, written and illustrated by Shel Silverstein, published back in 1964. This book, first off, is really depressing. It really is. And it's about this tree that gives and gives and gives to this little boy, and he grows up, and the tree, as a boy first, he climbs on the tree, he sits by the tree, he eats the tree's apples, and then as the boy gets older, he doesn't visit the tree as often, but then he's a teenager and he's with a girl, and then he's an old man, and he says he needs a house, so he cuts the tree, offers her branches. The tree's actually a girl. And then when he's older, he says he needs a boat, so the tree says to cut down her tree trunk to make a boat. And then he's an old man, and the tree, he says, all I want to do is a nice place to sit down and rest, and the tree says to sit on her stump, and he does, and it always ends with, and the tree was happy. And that's nice that the tree is so giving, but it's both extremes. It's the tree giving so much and the boy taking so much. So really, the boy is selfish. Even as he grows up, the tree's just always giving, but it makes the tree happy, which is nice. It's sad a little. And there are all these interpretations of it, saying the tree could represent a mother and the boy is like her son. Or there's these religious interpretations. Just that kid, the boy, when he's an old man, he never gives back to the tree. It's just the tree always wants to give, and that's what makes the tree happy. So that in itself is nice. It's so sad, this book. But I loved it as a kid. And so, number 5, The Cat in the Hat, written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, published in 1957. I mean, okay, first of all, I loved a lot of Dr. Seuss books. Another one I loved that I didn't include on this list was One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. But with Cat in the Hat, I mean, the Cat in the Hat himself, that character is, I think, probably one of the most popular children's fictional characters. It's, of course, about this brother and sister who are just sitting at home bored, and then all of a sudden this anthropomorphic cat comes up and wreaks havoc in the house, and then he introduces them to his creature friends with their red jumpsuits and their crazy blue hair, named Thing 1 and Thing 2, who cause more trouble. But then the cat cleans up everything and leaves just in time before their mother returns. And this too, I remember the animated special. I loved it as a kid. So did my siblings. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. We loved this special so much. We had it on VHS. We would watch it a lot. We found in the special when the cat starts singing, and then he's saying the Cat in the Hat in all these different languages, and then he just keeps singing, oh my goodness, let me try to remember. I'm a shlaka in a shlapa, which is the Cat in the Hat in Russian. We found that hilarious for some reason. He would sing it over and over, and then he'd just crash. In the special, in the book, there's none of that, but in the special too, then it's a little bit different, the plots, because in that one, he comes back because he says he misplaced his moss-covered, 3-handled family gradunza. Whatever the heck that is. But then also there's the fish who's kind of the stickler and telling the kids this cat shouldn't be here while your mother is out. He's just a cranky little fish, but he's absolutely right. This cat, that mischievous cat, that's just his name, the Cat in the Hat, with that white and red striped hat of his. Oh wait, it's Shopka in a Schlappa. I must have said it wrong earlier. Shopka in a Schlappa. Yep, a cat in the hat in Russian. The most common word for cat is kashka. Interesting. Actually, it says here, Shopka in a Schlappa translates to hat in a hat. Well, regardless, loved Cat in the Hat. I actually also really loved the sequel, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back. In that one, the cat makes a mess. There's this pink ring left in the tub, and then the cat offers to help, and then the pink just ends up in all these weird places, on their mother's dress, on the wall. And then the cat enlists help from these smaller cats who live inside of his hat. It's kind of like those Russian nesting dolls in which they get smaller and smaller. So then there's little cat B, little cat C, and so forth. All the way to little cat Z, who's so tiny you can't even see him. And this cat unleashes a voom, which cleans up everything. I'm literally, full disclosure, I was just reading the synopsis and just remembering it as I was saying it. But, so yeah, Cat in the Hat. That's a classic. Most likely one of Dr. Seuss's most recognized characters. Just a huge work. And of course it even had that live action adaptation that we don't need to discuss with Mike Myers. Nope. That's just, nope. Sticking with the animated version that my siblings and I loved. That one's good. Continuing on, number 4, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, written and illustrated by Eric Carle, published back in 1969. Eric Carle, first off, I love his art style. Absolutely beautiful. And I loved a lot of his books as a kid. I only have this one on the list, but other ones I loved by him include, I loved The Very Busy Spider, with that web it makes, and I remember you could feel it on the page, the web. I also loved The Mixed Up Chameleon, and Brown Bear, What Do You See? And it's just all these different animals. I see so-and-so looking at me. So cute. But in The Very Hungry Caterpillar, the caterpillar wakes up very hungry, and he goes through all the days of the week eating something new. And he eats increasing quantities of fruit on each day of the week. First, on Monday, he eats an apple. Tuesday, 2 pears. Wednesday, 3 plums. Thursday, 4 strawberries. And Friday, 5 oranges. And then on Saturday, he just eats a lot more. He eats a piece of chocolate cake, an ice cream cone, pickle, slice of Swiss cheese, salami, a lollipop, cherry pie, sausage, cupcake, and a slice of watermelon. So a very hungry caterpillar indeed. And as I recall, there was just a hole in each of these items, and then it would just you turn the page, be more and more. So just a hole where the caterpillar had eaten it. And then he gets so stuffed and he wasn't hungry anymore. So then he spins himself into a cocoon. And then he sleeps it off. And then after 2 weeks, he emerges as a handsome butterfly with large, gorgeous, multicolored wings. I just picture it, all those beautiful colors. Great stuff. Loved it. And now that I'm thinking of it, I remember too this had an animated special, because I remember the chameleon one did as well. And I used to watch that as a child. Number 3, The Runaway Bunny, written by Margaret Wise Brown, illustrated by Clement Hurd, published back in 1942. And this one, there's just this little bunny who keeps saying that he's going to run away, and then the mother says, if you run away, I'll go after you. But then he says, I'll become a fish, and she says, I'll fish for you. Well, I'll climb a mountain. Well, I'll climb up that mountain to get you. It's basically whatever the little bunny says he'll do, that the mother will be there with him as well, because that's her baby bunny. And then at the end, the baby bunny says, oh, shucks, I guess I might as well stay here and be your little bunny. Too adorable. But I remember it would go back and forth between just the bunnies in black and white, and then it would be a beautiful image in color with the mama bunny and baby bunny. And those little white bunnies, too adorable. I'm realizing now that with this book, reading it so much, probably subconsciously it fueled my desire to get a pet rabbit, which I did in second grade, as a matter of fact. And it was a white bunny, like the bunnies in this book, a white dwarf rabbit with red eyes. I named her Snowflake. I loved her so much. And it's just a sweet story about the lengths mothers will go to for their children. Number 2, Goodnight Moon, also written by Margaret Wise Brown and illustrated by Clement Hurd, and published back in 1947. And I'm going to be honest, I genuinely didn't realize that until preparing for this specific episode of this podcast. I didn't realize that Margaret Wise Brown wrote both The Runaway Bunny and Goodnight Moon, but I think I must have understood. I do recall, though, that I knew the art style was similar, but I didn't realize that until just now. But Goodnight Moon is just that perfect bedtime storybook, and I remember my mom reading it with her soothing voice. Good night. Just, it has the rhyming, too. Saying goodnight to everything. Good night, kittens. Good night, balloon. Good night, hairbrush. Good night, moon, of course. And then I thought it was so funny with the good night mush, or good night old lady saying hush. And then the part where it's, I'm trying to recall, good night nobody, good night bowl of mush, good night noises everywhere. I'm just recalling, I'm trying to remember, but yeah. It's just a very simple book, but just that perfect, soothing story to make you all sleepy and ready for bed. So, to recap, number 10, Put Me in a Zoo. Number 9, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. 8, Green Eggs and Ham. 7, Rainbow Fish. 6, The Giving Tree. 5, The Cat in the Hat. 4, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. 3, The Runaway Bunny. 2, Goodnight Moon. And my number 1 favorite children's book as a kid, Are You My Mother? Written and illustrated by P.D. Eastman, published back in 1960. I loved reading this book so much with both my mom and my dad. Oh my goodness, we'd read this book so many times over and over. It's about this little bird that hatches and he doesn't know where his mother is. And he goes around just asking. He asks a kitten, he asks a hen, a dog, a cow if they're his mother. And then he runs into this construction crane that just says snort, and I found that so funny as a kid. It's saying snort, but the little baby bird can't find his mom, and he just says, I want my mother. And then the snort brings him back to his nest, and then the mother comes back with the worm for him, and the mother asks if he knows who she is, and he says, yes, you are not a kitten, you are not a hen, you are not a dog, etc. And he says, you are my mother. How sweet, how absolutely, oh my goodness, I'm smiling so big right now. It's also really cute that it's just the inherent thing. He didn't need to ask, he knew that that was his mother. And I loved it so much as a kid. And those memories of reading these books with my parents, loved it so much. And it's interesting too because these books were published so many years ago, but they'll continue to be read to kids for generations. Reading is important. And it's a nice bonding experience between kids and their parents. Really cute, nice trip down memory lane. A lot of great times reading these books. When I say over and over, I mean over and over. Never got tired of them. Never did. And repetition is important too for kids when learning, so that's a big part of it as well. And mostly a majority of them about animals. It's just nice little stories for young kids. Great childhood memories. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga, the last one of 2018. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, I'm excited to welcome another guest on the show. I'll be kicking off 2019 by interviewing Casey Reed. He's a music director in New York City. He's also the co-host of one of my favorite podcasts, the Friday Night Nicktoons podcast. We're going to be talking all things musicals. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited for that. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.